Well, this is Betting Weekly Extra Time, European edition. You're with myself, Dan Roebuck, Senior Handicapper. Steve Wiss is alongside me, as are Daniele Fisichella and James Easton. Steve, how's your week been? Coupe de France action. We've got a final, Paris Saint-Germain against Lyon. PSG, a short price favourites, minus 400 to win the Cup again. Lyon, plus 250. What do you make of the semis?
I'm doing okay, Dan. As we spoke off air, a little bit under the weather this week with a head cold, whatever you want to call it. So if I don't hear you properly, then if I tap this, then you'll know why. But I sound a bit like Sean Calvert there, don't I? But I'm doing all right. You know, it's been busy. I've had, obviously for myself, the return of the Scandinavian leagues as well has been taking some of my time. But we're getting to the business end of the season. Had some decent winners last weekend. The hot dog's still cold. We'll come to that soon. But, I mean, cup action. We got Leverkusen in the final of the German Cup now. He had an easy win last night. PSG against Lyon in France is an interesting one. I don't think that will necessarily be a complete banker for PSG. And, we keep rolling, don't we? This is an exciting time for any soccer fans or soccer bettors.
James, what did you make of Mbappe? Did he miss a penalty and score? And you were talking about the fact that he was going to play in the Coupe de France games, and he's going to be in and out when it comes to Liga action. He was subbed off, wasn't he, in Le Classique? I mean, do we expect him to play at all against Clermont at the weekend?
That's a good question, Dan. I certainly don't expect him to start because PSG at home to Clermont, the bottom team in League One, should be a very easy win for PSG. And of course, they don't really need to win this weekend because the league title is almost wrapped up already. So no, I wouldn't expect Mbappe to start against Clermont. To be honest, I think Luis Enrique, the PSG manager, could rotate lots of players out of the PSG team in the league this weekend because, of course, they've got the far more important matter of Barcelona in the Champions League next week. So it's an interesting game, actually, this weekend, PSG, because they're obviously very short price favourites, as always, especially at home to such a weak Clermont side. But we might see a very weak PSG starting 11, I think.
Interesting. Fascinating to see how the market reacts to that. Lots are probably already factored into the price, but when Mbappe's name does not appear on the team sheet, it can always cause a little bit of a murmur when it comes to the prices. Daniele, we had Coppa Italia semi-final first legs, of course, midweek, Juventus and Fiorentina with first leg advantages. Juve a minus 155 to win the Coppa Italia. Atalanta and Fiorentina both plus 300. Anything interesting to report from a Coppa point of view?
Well, Juventus took the revenge on Lazio after being well defeated at the weekend, and they deserve to win 2-0. Very important, the return of Vlahovic. Fiorentina, perhaps a bit short, only one goal. Atalanta had a couple of scares and were saved by Carnesecchi. And weirdly enough, this weekend is Juve, Fiorentina. Maybe they'll meet again on the 15th of May at the Stadio Olimpico for the final.
It'd be interesting to see how those cup competitions bear out. Head to the Bet Rivers website for all the latest prices. We're going to get our usual mix of 2-unit plays, hot dogs, and so on over the course of the next half hour, 40 minutes or so. I think we're looking at 6 weeks profit, just about scrambled some green last weekend. Hot dogs are a little bit cold. We'll come on to that a little bit later on. I'm going to start with the 2-unit plays as per usual. Steve, you are first up for a 9:30 Eastern Saturday game in the Bundesliga. Mainz against Darmstadt here. Mainz a short price favourite. It's minus 230. Big game for Mainz. For Darmstadt, are they in the last chance saloon? Are they not getting out of it in terms of staying up? I mean, they are, minus 5,000 to go down here. Is their race run already? Is this all about Mainz? How do you see it?
Well, they are now drinking at the last chance saloon, Darmstadt. If they lose this game, they will be 9 points adrift of the playoff spot. So, and that'll be too much for them to make up. So, this is an absolute kitchen sink game for them. They've got to throw absolutely everything at Mainz. And I think Mainz as well really need to win because if we look at there's 3 teams sort of at the minute they're adrift at the bottom 3, and the playoff spot looks like what Mainz, Köln, and Darmstadt are playing for. And Mainz won't get an easier game or season in theory, so they've got to go for it here. The bet I'm going with, and I'm making the most of a 2-unit play because this might be the shortest price that I tipped maybe all year on any show. Minus 148 price for over 2.5 goals. Just a straightforward over 2.5. No complications with Asian goal lines here, Dan. Just straight on the nose for over 2.5 because this would be, this is one of my sort of theory games, if you want to call it that. Two desperate teams who need to win at this stage of the season. And, I'd be going against my own sort of philosophies if I didn't actually take this bet, so I've got to go with it. It's funny how football changes during the season. If you had said to me a couple of months ago that you will have a 2-unit play on a Mainz over, I'd have been like, what are you smoking, Steve? But it does change. The new manager is coming at Mainz, and they have generally been much more offensive minded. The 0-0 they had last week at Leipzig was absolutely crazy, Dan. I mean, I couldn't believe the amount of misses that I saw last week in the Bundesliga. In fact, the amount of misses across whole of Europe actually was crazy, but it was a ridiculous 0-0. Chances everywhere. I think this is going to be a wide open game. A draw doesn't suit anyone, and it certainly doesn't suit Darmstadt. They have got to win this match. There's no doubt about it. A draw, that's not enough for them. So, and they gave it a good go last week against your boys Bochum, 2-0 down, and they came back to 2-2. So there's still some fight in this dog. So Darmstadt, I'm hoping, can contribute here. Straight over 2.5. I don't care who gets the goals. I kind of actually hope Darmstadt get the win just to make it interesting. But that might be asking a lot. -148. Mainz Darmstadt over 2.5 goals. 2-unit play.
Udinese Inter for Daniele. This is Monday, 2:45 Eastern. Udinese, big price, 6-1 shots. Inter, short price, -225 here. We wondered, Daniele, how Inter would play last week. A solid success over Empoli. And we're looking for something similar, aren't we, today with the champions-elect?
So now we know Champions League football, Inter going to be destined to play it on a Monday for the next couple of weeks. They also got the derby coming up on a Monday when they could win the Scudetto, given that they win the games against Udinese, against Cagliari, and then they win against Milan. So they could wrap up the title this month, and I think they'll probably will, starting with a win in Udine at the Stadio Friuli. I went for an Inter handicap -1, -130 for my 2-unit pick. So if they win by 1 goal margin, you simply get your money back. I am confident Inter are going to win this one because they've been extremely good on the roads. They won 9 games. They haven't lost any of them, and they dispatched with these relegation stragglers, the likes of Lecce, Cagliari, Salernitana, also Empoli in the reverse fixtures. And they got a couple of records to chase. Well, first of all, if they win all the games in Serie A, they will establish a new record points in the Italian top flight. Is a bit difficult, to be fair. But probably the most achievable one is the one for most clean sheets in Serie A. The record is Juventus in 2011 and Lazio last season win 21. Inter got 19. And, against a side, Udinese, that based on the home form will be in relegation zone in the bottom 3. They've only won 1 game this season, and Udinese have been the big giant killers of Serie A. They beat Juventus, Milan, Bologna in the league, and Lazio, of course. I think it's unlikely Inter are gonna drop points here. Look, Udinese are gonna be without their main top scorer, Lucca. Inter got everyone fit, everyone back. They've scored in 11 out of 14 first halves on the road. Udinese, on the other hand, have conceded in 5 of the last 6 home matches before the break. I think an early goal for Inter here would settle. Not expecting a high score line, but a win for Inter. Asian handicap -1, -130.
Under Udinese, could they go down, Daniele? Too many teams between them in the relegation zone. There's 7-1 shots to be relegated.
They definitely can go down, Dan, because it's a team that is not used to fight for salvation. They are missing the quality of Delofeu. They missed it all season. And it also seems a team that is very mentally fragile. They took the lead 13 times this season. Only managed to win 4 of those games. It's a team that, as I said, everything that could have gone wrong has possibly gone wrong. I wouldn't be surprised, at least if they're fighting until the very last game of the season.
That's a really good stat for in-play bettors. Incidentally, take note if you're looking at Udinese between now and the end of the season. Let's get James's 2-unit play, shall we? Montpellier versus Lorient. Montpellier -134. Lorient +340 on the money line with a draw, +290 now then. Lorient. James, last week against Brest, we were counting our 2-unit play. They had more shots on target, more possession, more XG, more corners. All the attacking metrics went in Lorient's favour, bar the one that we wanted against Brest. I mean, it was desperately unlucky.
Yes, I've been trying to wipe that game from my memory, Dan, last weekend. We'll come on to it actually a bit more with the hot dog pick as well, because they were unlucky with Lorient. And that's actually why I'm backing them this weekend. So my pick here on the Montpellier-Lorient game is on Lorient plus 0.75 on the Asian handicap at minus 118. So if they lose here, Lorient, by a single goal, you'll only lose half your stakes. And if they draw or if they win, then you make a profit. And it's something I also mentioned last week. It's psychology, really, this, Dan. You can feel cursed by a team when they lose in the manner that Lorient lost last weekend. But I just tend to look at the performance. As you've laid out, the performance from Lorient was pretty good. There was nothing wrong with the stats. There was nothing wrong with the metrics. So I'm happy to back them again this weekend, because I don't think they can be as unlucky this weekend as they were last weekend. And when I came to look at the prices on this match, I was surprised to see Montpellier not only odds on to win, but such short price. I think 100 minus 134 for Montpellier to win is just too short, because there's not actually a great deal of difference in quality between these two sides. If you look at the likely starting 11s for the match, probably slightly different in how they set up and where the strengths and the weaknesses of the two teams are, but not a great deal of difference in the actual quality. And then if you look at the league table, Montpellier are only 3 points above Lorient at the moment. If you look at the 8-game form, Lorient have actually picked up more points than Montpellier. So I think that Lorient are underrated here. And if you can just put aside the result from last weekend and focus on the performance, actually, I think they'll be quietly confident going into this game that they'll get something. So that was my thinking on the match. And the pick again, it's Lorient. It's on the Asian handicap, a plus 0.75 start, and that's at minus 118.
Of course, there was two sort of parts to your preview last week, and the other half was the fact that Brest might not be exactly the second best team in Liga. They did win the game. Not fancy fading them again, or would you put betters off fading them? They're at home to Metz, which looks a bit more straightforward assignment for them, I guess.
Yes, it should be a bit more straightforward. I did have a look at that as well, down the Brest versus Metz game. Brest on minus 177 there. I wouldn't oppose them purely because of how weak Metz have looked to me recently. They lost 5-2 last weekend to Monaco. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Brest win that game. But I think there is actually one pick on that match which is worth looking at, which I had a look at myself, and that is on over 2.5 goals, which is available at plus 120. We talked on the show last week about the fact that we should now expect more games in League One to go overs rather than unders at the 2.5 goal line. The Brest versus Metz game is the match in League One this weekend with the biggest price on over goals. So I would be tempted, if you're looking at that match, to go on the overs. Plus 120, I think, is a pretty good price.
Yeah, we looked at that. It's certainly a trend worth following between now and the end of the season. Let's get to the hot dogs next up for us. Steve, they've gone a bit cold recently. We've had a lot of joy, a lot of success. It's been really fun to get some of the big prices over the line. Is it harder for those bigger prices to come in, or is it just more difficult to identify them? What's your sort of take at the minute when it comes to the hot dogs?
Yeah, I was thinking about this, Dan, and I do believe I was far more comfortable in the first half of the season finding these big prices. I mean, for example, I could give you about 2 or 3 hot dogs in the Scandinavian leagues this weekend, because the books, I think, have got them completely wrong. But by this stage of the season, teams that are performing well, you're not going to get good prices so often. So you've got to identify the bigger prices in a different way. So that's kind of my excuse, if you know what I mean. I mean, my hot dog has gone cold for a few weeks now, and I think even the two gentlemen here have managed to catch on with my infectious disease, sadly. But we're still in profit for them. We're about 5 units up overall, which is not bad for the season. So, it's variance over the whole campaign, Dan. But I think it depends how the style of betting you've got. But yeah, I have found it harder, certainly for like a money line price on a team. But that might be my style of betting,
Yeah, I mean, we'll come on to James's pick in a sec. I mean, James was very unlucky, and I thought Daniele was as well, really, because he could have attacked the Bologna game in a different way. We could have gone team total. Anyway, that's last week. This is this week. Let's kick off with your pick here, Steve. You're going to go League One, Liga for. I can't remember the last time you had a hot dog in the French top flight. You've gone Germany recently, but this is France for you this week.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would have gone Spain if I could have done this week, but there's no matches. So, apart from the cup final. But look, proceed with caution here because I'm not even sure I'm that confident myself about the hot dog. When you're
Don't
on a
say
losing
that.
run, well, when you're on a losing run of hot dogs, you get gremlins in your mind, don't you? But this price did stand out to me, and it's in the Monaco against Rennes game, and I'm going to go with Monaco on their team total over 2.5 goals at plus 225. Now, I took an over 2.5 team total bet last week in the Stuttgart game, and that profited for me. So I'm hoping that it can sort of have 2 weeks running here. And the thing is, I believe this is a bad spot for Rennes. They have just lost in a cup semi-final away to PSG. And really, that might be kind of their season gone now in a way. I mean, they're still going to fight for the top 6, but there's going to be, they'd have loved to have made the cup final and, qualified for Europe that way. And I think that the heart might be ripped out of them a little bit because of that. And this is a tough spot because Monaco, as much as I've criticised them this season, I still don't believe them and Brest are they're not that good, in my opinion. Monaco are better than Brest, though. And Monaco, what they do have is goals in them. They've had goals in them all season, Dan, from various areas of the team. The manager, Adi Hutter, has come in and they've got the most over 2.5 goal games of any side in France. So that kind of sums them up. I wouldn't trust their defence. And, I do think they'll win this game and maybe with a bit to spare because Rennes away from home have not been convincing for a while, probably for the last 2 seasons, if we're being honest. And Monaco have scored at least 3 goals, I think, on 10 occasions this year. So it's a total that they can hit. They beat Metz 5-2 last week away from home. There's a few comments actually on the video, weren't they, last week about how did we let that slip under our radar because it was such a convincing win. Now, Metz are bad, of course, that helps. But when you score 5 goals in a game, that's going to really get your confidence going, isn't it? Balogun came off the bench and got a couple. Minamino on the score sheet. Ben Yedder didn't score, surprisingly. So if you were on him any time, you'd have been not too happy. And yes, I think they're only this price because it's Rennes that they're facing, and Rennes are not bad. But Strasbourg scored twice on Rennes last week. I mean, Strasbourg can get 2 goals. Monaco can get 3. So plus 225, I think it's a big price. This should be about plus 150, I think. So that's my hot dog for the week. Monaco just to score me 3 goals, and I think they'll get a comfortable win. To be honest.
All of our hot dogs are Sunday. Incidentally, that one is 11:05 Sunday. For Daniele, we go midday Sunday Eastern, and it's Verona Genoa. You're playing on the money line. Who'd you like here, Daniele?
I like Verona because they got much more at stake than Genoa, and Verona win pays just about plus 180, which is our threshold for the hot dog. But I do agree with you; it's very difficult to pick the hot dog now. Perhaps from now on, the parlay could be a good idea. Maybe combine 2 bets on the same game or in different games to get to that plus 180. But one of my favorite strategies for the hot dog is also to try and play on the Asian line, so you also have the opportunity to get your money back or half money back or half a win. There are different strategies, but I couldn't find any better value than Verona beating Genoa. Genoa virtually saved. They're winless in 4, and they lost only one of the last 7 away games, but won only one of the last 8. So obviously they have slowed down. They are the princes of draws because the kings of draws are Udinese with 16. They got 11 draws so far this season. And you wonder whether to use one of Nigel Seeley's favorite phrases: are they already at the beach? Well, I don't think they are necessarily at the beach, although they have it on the doorstep in Liguria for sure. But against a team, Verona, that are fighting for their lives and they're doing so much better in recent times, I think you could fade them. You could fade Genoa a little bit. If you look at Verona, in the last 11 games, they only collected 1 less points than in the previous 19, which means the players' turnover has paid off. They sold 10 players in January, got rid because of financial issues of Gonge, Terracciano, Hien, etc. But the ones they replaced have actually stepped up. They scored in 10 of the last 12 games, Verona. They got more points in the table compared to last season when they got saved at the playoff against Spezia. I think they'll be saved. And I think with this win, perhaps a scrappy 1-0 win, which most of the other teams in the relegation zone are not able to do it. Verona seem the more suitable for this sort of wins. They probably win the game and win you a good price, plus 180.
Yeah, never mind a plus 180 for a home team. I always think it's a fair play, certainly in a game like this. That's midday Sunday, 9 a.m. Sunday. We go back to the Montpellier game against Lorient, and we go back to James's friend and ours, Julien Ponceau, and James in the WhatsApp group. And I quote, said, third and final time, win or lose, I will never mention him again. Well, if he wins, you can mention him again. So we're going back to the Ponceau well here, James.
We're going back to the Ponceau well. The reason he's a talking point, Dan, for listeners and viewers that don't know, is we backed him in this market last weekend and he hit the post. He was clean through on goal. It was a decent strike, actually, and he hit the post, which is infuriating and actually a good lesson. It shows that if you hit the post, it doesn't count as a shot on target, unfortunately. Some people might think it does, but a shot against the post is not a shot on target. So we lost with Julien Ponceau last weekend because he could only hit the frame of the goal, but I am willing to back him again because his price is exactly the same. He is plus 200 to have over 0.5 shots on target, and it's just too big because he's getting into the positions to have shots on goal. As we saw last weekend, he came pretty close, and he's now actually managed shots on target in 5 of his last 9 matches. So he's actually showing he can do it. So I was willing to do it one more time. This will be the last chance I give him to manage a shot on target. It'll be the third time. In 2024, we backed him. And I think he'll get into those positions. We have been seeing that. If you look at the way that Lorient play, he's just behind the striker. He's very good at finding space off the ball, is Ponceau. So as long as his teammates find him, then he is generally in pretty good goal scoring positions. So willing to back him one more time here. That's on the Montpellier-Lorient game. And that's at plus 200. And just very quickly, Dan, it's not a hot dog pick, but also on this market, if people like it, have a look at Oumar Diakité for Reims. He's available at plus 120. So he's not a hot dog pick. His price isn't big enough. I did think about doing him as one of my 1 unit plays, but I thought let's not go overboard on this particular market. But Oumar Diakité is an informed striker for Reims. They're at home this weekend and he's plus 120. So if you're looking for a shorter price player in the same market, he would be the man to play.
Well, hopefully, James, this won't be a Ponzo illusion, which means that when the
Like
human mind yes, or he judges the size of an object based on the background. You might want to Google it as much as I did.
I'll have to.
I tell you what, this Ponceau is a frustrating player. He's so frustrating because James, the amount of times that we watch him and we just think we're just probably shouting to the screen, shoot, man.
Yes.
But he will pass.
Do you know what I think it is as well?
Fantastic positions.
He gets in great positions. Julien Ponceau, as a teenager in the youth academy, he played in about 5 different positions. He played right wing, right back once, centre midfield. They sometimes played him as a false 9. So I don't think he's got the instincts to go for goal because I think he spent a lot of his younger years not being in positions to score. He's actually quite good when he gets there. He just needs a little bit more belief, doesn't he, to have a go. Even with the shot last week, he was hesitant and then had a go and hit the post. So let's hope he does what we're paying him to do this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I just hope that, viewers and listeners to the show, a lot of all our handicappers, they base selections on stats and what's been happening with that particular player, particular team. Just because we tip them up 1 week and they don't win doesn't mean that you can't go in again the following week or the week after that, because a lot of the time the stats stay the same for a certain period of time. So there's nothing wrong with keep on playing the same picks, even if we don't put them up. Hopefully, people are just getting educated to certain aspects and certain strategies. More selections for you. Let's get some second picks from the boys. Stevie, first up, we're going back to Germany. This is an interesting one. This 12:30 Saturday is Dortmund against Stuttgart. Dortmund are plus 120, Stuttgart plus 195. Now, Dortmund away at Atletico Madrid next week in the Champions League. Of course, brilliant win against Bayern last week in the Klassiker. Stuttgart, I can't get my head around this. You might have to explain this one for me, Steve. Second favourites in the money line, obviously, but minus money to score 2 or more goals. Square that circle for me. That's your play. I've just given it away. Go on.
Yes, Stuttgart team total over 1.5 goals at minus 109. They worked out for me last week, just the last kick of the game. So
it's almost like are the market makers suggesting here that Stuttgart are more than 50% likely to score 2 or more, but also to not win the game.
Yes, basically. The goal line's high, isn't it? Is it 3.5?
Yes.
I did look at that goal. If the goal line was 3 here, I would have been all over it. But it's just a little bit too high. Stuttgart, I nearly had them as the hot dog, actually, because I think they won't win this game. I think it's a good spot for them against a Dortmund side who might be distracted. Like you said, they've got a big game coming up, haven't they, in the Champions League? And I mean, Dortmund are one of them sides I've struggled to get a proper read on this season. I tweeted out last week when they beat Bayern, are Bayern just crap, or have I underestimated Dortmund all year? And the general response was Bayern are just awful. That's what everyone responded to me. So we'll go with that, shall we? And we won't give Dortmund that much credit for beating them. But I do think Stuttgart have played them twice this season in the Liga and Cup, and they've absolutely murdered Dortmund. They've had nearly 40 shots combined in 2 games against them, with a combined XG of 6.5. So this is a matchup. I think the manager, we've got to give him a lot of credit, by the way. Sebastian Hoeneß has this is one of the best coach sides in the whole of Europe this season, Stuttgart, and I really hope they do get the Champions League. But I think it's a matchup he'll enjoy. If they play like they have done against Dortmund this season, they're well capable of scoring a couple of goals. But the problem with Stuttgart is that defense can be vulnerable. We saw it last week. They were cruising 2-0 up, and they nearly lost against Heidenheim. They do give up some random chances, and now they might just be getting a bit nervous, a bit tetchy about qualifying for the Champions League. And what will let them down will be the defense. It won't be the offense. There's enough goals in them. So it's the sort of game I could see them certainly getting a couple of goals in, but finding a way to not win it. You know what I'm coming from. So this is why I'm going with the team total rather than like handicaps, money lines, even overall goal line, actually. But they're the side that have generally served me really well this season, so I'm not going to desert them here. Dortmund, I do struggle with Dortmund, like I say, but I think it's a good spot to get them. They've got to be thinking of that Champions League a little bit, surely, Dan. And they do have a 3-point buffer on Leipzig in the Champions League race. I'm going to say Stuttgart win the game 3-2, but there's a team total 1.5 is what I'm going with. Just a shade of even money.
Speaking of Champions League, as we move on to Daniele's second play, Frosinone, Bologna. I mean, Bologna here, Daniele, dreaming of that Champions League spot in Serie A. Plus 110 for a top 4 finish, 5 points clear of Roma at the moment. I mean, do you think they will do it? Can they do it? Are they value a shade bigger than even money?
Definitely a value. No, definitely a value to do it. Although the calendar gets a little bit tougher now after this game of Frosinone. However, Roma are playing in Europe, so are other teams in and around Bologna. They might even finish above Juventus if Juve are not careful. They're only 2 points behind them. Definitely worth a shot. They've been so consistent this season. Only lost 1 of the last 10. So yeah, I think it's worth a shot.
What's your play in the Frosinone Bologna game? This is 6:30 a.m. Sunday Eastern time.
Over 2.5 goals, minus 109. It looks set up for a goal fest, perhaps a both to score a game. There is one thing that separates Frosinone from the bottom 3, and in particular Empoli, which they are tied with points, 25, is the fact that Frosinone have scored an awful lot of goals, 16 times more than the Tuscan side, despite conceding 61 goals, so more than 2 goals on average per game. But at home at the Benito Stirpe, they have netted 25 times, which is 2 more than what Milan and Juventus have done. Of course, they do struggle to keep clean sheets, only 2 0-0 draws against Udinese and Torino, which are renowned for being particularly stingy on the road. But Frosinone, 6 of the last 7 home fixtures have ended with both teams to score. The reverse fixtures actually ended 2-1 for Bologna. Since February, Frosinone are in crisis. They only collected 2 points, like Salernitana. Bologna, on the other hand, since February, only 1 point short of Inter, which collected 25 points, who Bologna they lost against, perhaps in unlucky circumstances. What is holding back Bologna this season has been the away form. They have won none of the first 7 games on the road. That's why they still got a -1 goal difference, but they won the last 3, and they went easy games against Lazio, against Atalanta, against Empoli, a team fighting for salvation, but they haven't won 3 games to nil since 1973. You remember that? Well done, of course. Of course, I barely. Over 2.5 goals, by the way. -1, -109.
I was alive, just.
Just.
Just. Frosinone have been really good to watch all season, certainly in terms of goals, got a really good return on investment. If you played over 2.5, let's hope we get another 3-goal or more game between Frosinone and Bologna. James, we go Toulouse, Strasbourg here, which is Sunday, 9 a.m. for your next pick. Toulouse are the favourites, even money just a little bit bigger. Strasbourg plus 255 here. And just when it seems that Patrick Vieira, I mean, I think he's been under pressure for much of the season. I know there's issues with the fans and the owners at Strasbourg, but they have these mini runs, don't they, Strasbourg? And potentially they are on one here. Talk us through your play.
Yeah, so my play here is on Strasbourg, Dan. It's actually Strasbourg or tie at -125. So if Strasbourg win or the game ends in a tie, then you're going to make a profit. And you're right, Strasbourg have found a little bit of form here. They've beaten Rennes 2-0 last weekend. They won against Nantes in their previous match. They're a really difficult side to read because there's actually been no sort of pattern to either their results or even their play, actually, a lot of the time this season. So I don't have a great deal of faith in them as a side. I've never really been sure what Patrick Vieira has been trying to do with them this season. I do have some sympathy with him, actually, in terms of the working environment at Strasbourg. It's quite difficult at the moment. It's their first season as part of a multi-club setup. I think that has caused, certainly Vieira, the manager, some issues. And as you say, the fans aren't happy about it. But looking at this, they found a little bit of form. And when I saw the prices, it's a pretty straightforward case to me of Toulouse just being too short. I think that they're plus 102. It's basically saying they've got about a 50% chance of winning the game. I don't think that would be fair, actually. I think although neither of these sides has done particularly well over any length of time this season, what we have seen is they're probably fairly well matched. And in terms of motivation, certainly Strasbourg still got everything to play for because they're looking to pull away from the bottom of the table. They should have a bit more confidence thanks to that recent improvement that we've seen from them. So this I felt was a good opportunity to back Strasbourg. As I say, you don't need them to win. It's Strasbourg or the tie. And if you look at how that's played out for Strasbourg this season, Toulouse are a bottom half side. Strasbourg are actually unbeaten in 5 games away from home against other bottom half sides. They've actually won 3 of those games and they've drawn 2. So this is a game where generally this season we've seen Strasbourg do pretty well. So yeah, I think not a team I would normally back. I've tried to avoid them much of the campaign, but I think the prices here are slightly wrong on the straightforward who's going to win. And what that then does, it creates this opportunity to go into another market, Strasbourg or tie. So that would be my pick, and it's at -125.
Just a few games that we want to mention that we haven't got picks in, but obviously a big weekend of European football. As Steve mentioned earlier, no La Liga action this weekend. That's because we've got the Copa del Rey final that takes place in Sevilla. Just for information, if you are playing Bet Rivers fans, Athletic Club -143, haven't won the trophy since 1984, but 6 times finalists since then. Mallorca plus 255. I've only ever won the Copa del Rey once. That was 20 years or so back. We've got to win the trophy prices. Athletic Club -278, Mallorca 2-1. Those are the prices for the 90 minutes. We've also got the Klassiker, the Dutch version, which is finaled against Ajax, final -245, Ajax plus 575, draw plus 380. Both teams are playing tonight. We're recording on Thursday lunchtime in the UK, so watch out for revised prices potentially. They're both off the pace in terms of the Eredivisie title. And Steve, this is one not for the faint-hearted at De Kuip.
Mm-hmm.
This is one match I'd love to go to, I must say, Dan. I mean, the whole stadium, actually, I don't know if any of you two gentlemen have
I've been, yeah.
There.
Yeah.
It is an incredible stadium, right?
Mm.
The when it's full and packed to the rafters, and the atmosphere here.
It's lively.
I don't think there'll be any Ajax fans, and if there are any, there'll be like 100. They'll be very, very limited. And I mean, this match down the years for me is often an automatic card bet, right? And no matter who's refereeing, I mean, I can't believe Bet Rivers are offering over 4.5 line at -115. And red card yes is plus 390. I mean, this is seriously, these two sides absolutely hate each other. And the fixture in Rotterdam here in Feyenoord is always the one which seems to go more spicy. because the crowd just gets on top of them so much more. So, I know not everywhere offers these cards lines now, but do get on. I mean, over 4.5. Look at some individual players. Maybe Coxu is usually quite good for booking in this game. And I say red card, yes, at plus 390, Dan. Oof, gets tasty. I mean, this is going to be spicy. By the way, Ajax have not lost any of their last 5 in away to Feyenoord. They often rate, they're bad this season, but they do often raise their levels for this particular fixture.
Yeah, the cards market's not offered in every single state, so just be wary of that. We've got a Rome derby as well, haven't we, Daniele? Roma against Lazio. So I noticed the card line here is 6.5. I mean, how feisty might that get at the weekend? This is Saturday, of course, first Stadio Olimpico fixture.
If we go by the recent numbers, it's going to get really, really feisty. There've been 7 yellow cards in the last league game, 6 yellows or 3 reds in the Coppa Italia game, 3 reds, 7 yellows last year. But okay, that was Roma under Jose Mourinho. But De Rossi now is in charge. He's had a good record in the derby. He won more than lost games, but also he himself as a player picked up 12 yellows and 1 red card when he was playing. And of these 13 cards, 11 have come right in the first half. So you could go for a line of over 3.5 cards, over 4.5 cards. Mancini, Guendouzi to get booked. De Rossi himself to get booked. Why not?
Could be an interesting one. Could be feisty. It would be remiss of us not to mention Rangers Celtic. It's the old firm clash, of course, in Scotland. Interesting, James, that Rangers are plus 123. Let's get it out there to win the game. Celtic plus 190 on the money line, even though Celtic top the SPL at the moment, and Rangers are minus money favourites to win the title. So odds compilers are obviously believing that Rangers will win that game, hence their short price, even though they're second in the league. It's an odd one sometimes to look at it.
Yeah, it is an odd one. And sometimes when you've got these two teams who are going head to head in a game, and they're also the 2 teams in the title race, sometimes it's worth looking not just at the match market, but also the title race and trying to think, well, hang on, what will happen to the title race prices if one team win or the other team win, or it ends in a draw? So, yeah, I think it is interesting. Rangers are obviously favourites to win the game, plus 123. So they're odds against, and Celtic are odds against in the title race. I know online, certainly, there's a lot of people doing the similar thing with the title race in the English Premier League at the moment. Obviously, we've got 3 teams in the title race there: Liverpool, Man City, and Arsenal. I've seen some really shrewd bettors out there trying to predict what will happen to the odds in the title race before weekend matches. And it's almost that betting in the title race can sometimes be better than betting in the games if you're able to sort of work out what might happen. So looking at, the Old Firm derby in Scotland, obviously a fantastic game, a great occasion. But it'd be very interesting to see what happens, I think, to those title race odds and just how much they move as well, depending on what the result is.
Yeah, this.
I think there's a game in hand, isn't there, for Rangers?
Yeah.
Which might explain some of it. But I tell you about this game. We talk about card lines. Bet Rivers haven't actually released one yet, but I'm predicting the card line is going to be 7.5, which is astronomical, obviously. Could you bet over 7.5 cards? But I mean,
maybe in a Spanish game, but I don't know.
I mean, this is crazy stuff. Wild. I mean, the referee isn't going to want to let things go out of hand straight away, is he? But it's an interesting battle. For those who don't follow the manager of Rangers, Philippe Clement, on Twitter, then do so. He always tweets something after a game, whether he wins, loses, or draws. If he gets the win here, I can imagine his tweet's going to be very jovial, isn't it? So, it's an interesting, isn't it? Philippe Clement against Brendan Rodgers. Who's your money on? I mean, I've got to go with the former Monaco man, right?
Yeah.
Sunday service, extra picks for you. We've got 3 final plays before we wrap things up, all on Sunday. If you're just having a bet on Sunday, these are the 3 potentially for you. We've got 1 in Germany, 1 in Italy, and 1 in France. We'll kick off with a Bundesliga fixture here. This is an overs play from Steve, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time, Hoffenheim, Augsburg. Steve.
Yeah, I was torn between this match and also Wolfsburg, Borussia Mönchengladbach for my Sunday over in Germany. I think both fixtures will go comfortably over the mark. I've gone with Hoffenheim, Augsburg over 3 Asian goals. Not really too much to add here. Everyone knows Hoffenheim have been a major over team this season. They don't keep clean sheets very often. Augsburg have actually one of them sides that have finished the season with a great amount of form. They've won a lot of games recently. They've scored a lot of goals recently. They did draw last week against Cologne. The reverse fixture ended 1-1, and I always remember this game. Pretty sure I was on the over in some form, and there was about 200 chances, and it somehow ended 1-1. But on this occasion, I think it goes comfortably over the mark. I mean, both sides are in a nice position, mid-table, no pressure on their shoulders. I mentioned this last week when I did the Gladbach game. These are the sort of matches that I like for overs in Germany towards the end of the season, and in most leagues, to be honest, because the pressure's not there. You don't feel like you've got to dig in and sort of defend really stoutly. They want to have fun. They want to entertain the fans. It's the end of the season. The shackles are off. Over 3 Asian goals looks a really good pick. I think at very worst we get a push here, but in all likelihood, knowing Hoffenheim's games, it should go comfortably over the mark.
That's 9:30 Sunday, 2:45 in the afternoon Eastern on Sunday in Italy. Juventus against Fiorentina, which could be that Coppa Italia final, as Daniel you mentioned right at the top of the show. You've played shots on target doubles before with profitable effect, Daniel, and you've picked out 2 players here in a double, in a parlay, to hopefully get one or more.
The 2 former Fiorentina men that play for Juventus, Federico
yeah.
Chiesa and Dusan Vlahovic, over 0.5 shots on target, both, and that means plus 114. Look, I know Juventus are in crisis, only 7 points in the last 9 in Serie A, and only scored 9 times in the last 9 games, and they got the 8th best domestic attack. But the return of Vlahovic has been a big boost in midweek, and we saw it. He scored against Lazio, so did Chiesa, and I think they should get at least plenty of chances against this Fiorentina side that still doesn't fully convince me. First of all, because it's a team that takes an awful lot of risk. They play a very high line. They do press very high, but sometimes they don't really convert into clear scoring chances. At the back, they don't have extremely pacey defenders, and they leave themselves exposed. The expected goals away differential, which in human terms means the goals they should have conceded away from home, is the highest in Serie A, plus 6.85, because they got a Hansan Griro, Pietro Terracciano, the goalkeeper. We always spoke about Di Gregorio, Caprile as best keepers, but Terracciano has been really, really good and has avoided a few goals for Fiorentina. Now, against such a leaky defense, a team that's only kept 5 clean sheets away in all competition and hasn't won an away game since 22 December, you would expect Vlahovic, who's, by the way, 4th in Serie A for shots on target, 32, and Chiesa, who's 16 for shots on target in Serie A, 21, but 2nd for Juventus, to have at least 1 shot on target during the game. Put them together, it's plus 114.
I like that one. And finally, from James, another late Sunday game locally, 2:45 in the afternoon Eastern on the Sunday. We go to Ligue 1 for your pick. What's your play, James?
Yes, it's the Nantes versus Lyon game in France, Dan. And the pick is Nantes plus 0.25 on the Asian handicap, which is at minus 118. We saw Nantes win 2-1 at Nice last weekend, which was their first game under their new old manager, Antoine Comboire, who's back for a second spell in charge. And it was a pretty good performance by Nantes, who I think are going to be really up for this game here. They're battling against relegation, so they've got everything to play for. Lyon won in the French Cup semi-final in midweek, a comfortable 3-0 win, although there were some dubious refereeing decisions in that game. Will Lyon ease off a little bit here this weekend? I think they might do, because they're no longer in any real threat of relegation. They're in mid-table now, 9 points, I think it is above the bottom 3. So we might see a slight differential in motivation here between Nantes and Lyon. And I think taking that into account and the fact that Nantes got a new manager and things seem to be a little bit more upbeat there, this is a great chance to back Nantes on the Asian handicap. And with this pick, plus 0.25, if they win or if the game ends in a draw, then you'll make a profit. And that's available at minus 118.
I really like that one.
Yeah.
I nearly had that as a hot. I nearly had Nantes as a hot
Did
dog
you?
this week. I think Lyon are in cup mode now, cup final mode in their heads. And it was a come to a win for them midweek, but they were aided by the referee, who was given a 1 out of 10 rating by L'Equipe.
Oh,
So
really?
they were.
What was the
very
story
much
there?
Well, just a few decisions, which were dubious. Like James said, we can't really go into too much detail. We can't be seen to criticize certain individuals, can we, on this show? But it was,
I don't know.
The referee in question was Stephanie Frappard, who's actually been reeled out again this weekend in the Monaco game. So let's hope she gives, from my hot dog point of view, Monaco a few decisions.
Steve, Daniele, James, thanks for your company. Good luck to one and all. We keep everyone posted. Our Twitter feeds, of course, over the weekend and into Monday. That's a wrap for Betting Weekly Extra Time European Show. We're back next week. Picks, plays, hot dogs, the lot. Follow us at Because We Win. Subscribe to our YouTube channel as well from all of us. For now, though, it is goodbye.